Hello, and welcome to the Community IT Innovators Technology Topics Podcast, where we discuss nonprofit technology, cybersecurity, tech project implementation, strategic planning, and nonprofit IT careers. Find us at communityit.com. Thank you for joining Community IT for this podcast, Part 1. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave us a rating to help others find this leadership resource for nonprofits. Listen for Part 2 in your podcast feed.
I want to welcome everyone to the Community IT Innovators webinar, Nonprofit IT, A Look Ahead. This is always one of our most popular webinars every year, and we have a panel today of our senior staff to talk about cutting edge and future trends in tech and what that means for nonprofits. They're going to talk about some fun stuff like AI, crypto, cybersecurity, supply chain and long-term labor changes, geopolitics as it relates to tech companies and products, and how any of this might impact your nonprofit and the tech that you use and will use 5 and 10 years in the future. So my name is Carolyn Woodard. I'm the Outreach Director for Community IT, and I'll be the moderator today. I'm very happy to hear from our experts. So Matt, would you like to introduce yourself?
Great. Thanks for the introduction, Carolyn, and I'm looking forward to our session today as well. As was mentioned, my name is Matthew Eshelman, and I'm the Chief Technology Officer here at Community IT. I'm happy to have celebrated my 21st year of service with the company. And also, I think I'm coming up on about 10 years in the role of CTO, where I focus primarily on cybersecurity, more sophisticated solutions architecture, and then overseeing the platform that we use to support our nearly 7,000 managed endpoints.
Thank you, Matt. My name is Noura Abouki. I'm a senior consultant at Community IT. I've been with Community IT for 13 years, and currently I advise our clients on best practices for managing their technology infrastructure. I also conduct technology assessment, develop IT plans, and build strategic roadmaps for our clients. I'm very grateful to be with you all and excited to talk about the future trends.
Hello, everybody. I'm Patrick Spray. Up until the end of 2022, I was the business IT manager and led our team of IT managers focused around the practice around client IT management, IT road mapping, and IT consulting. And then just recently, I was promoted to be the director of information systems and technology. So I'm also looking ahead and looking to plan for Community IT's internal IT for the next few years as well. So, I'm speaking about this, but I'm also learning about this as well.
Thank you, Pat. So before we begin, if you're not familiar with Community IT, a little bit about us. We are a 100% employee-owned managed services provider. So we provide outsourced IT support, and we work exclusively with nonprofit organizations. Our mission is to help nonprofits accomplish their missions through the effective use of technology. We are big fans of well-managed IT and what that can do for your nonprofit. We serve nonprofits across the United States, and we've been doing this for over 20 years. We are technology experts. We are consistently given an MSP 501 recognition for being a top MSP, which is an honor we received again in 2022. All right, so I wanted to talk about our learning objectives for today. Last month, our panel talked about trends in essential IT and basics that, in our observation, all nonprofits should be doing, like supporting remote workers, improving cybersecurity over the long haul, using cloud platforms effectively for collaboration. So if you missed that, you can go back and check out the video for that. But this month, we're going to talk more about forward-looking trends and opportunities that tech-savvy nonprofits might want to pursue. And we're going to talk about the ways we expect nonprofit IT and IT generally to evolve over the next few years. So our learning objectives for today are that we hope at the end of the session, you will understand the 2023 cutting edge and future IT trends for nonprofits, that you will learn how to keep up with tech trends and why it's important for nonprofits to stay current. Even if your nonprofit doesn't, deal with technology per se, technology is so pervasive in the way that we work and how our organizations operate. And then we're going to enjoy, I hope, a wide discussion of nonprofits of the future and how they will work. I want to remind everyone today that for these webinars, Community IT is vendor agnostic. We only make recommendations to our clients, and we only do that based on their specific business needs. All right, so we are going to start off with a poll like we used to do to get to know you a little bit and get you to think about the role of technology at your organization. So I know everyone uses technology at their organization, but we wanted to see a little bit more about how IT works in your nonprofit. So is it something that you use because you have to, or is it something that you it's like in your DNA? You were founded by disruptors and you use IT in innovative ways. Option one would be basic office support. So you use IT to send emails, print reports, use business tools online, but you manage mostly everything yourself. So you just need basic office support. Basic office support plus is the second option. You have business critical platforms that IT supports, like a CRM, database, financial tools. You might have more than one office that you're supporting. The option three is that you deliver services using IT in addition to basic office support. So it could be an education setting where you're supporting, devices that the students are using. Could be healthcare situation where the people who work for you or volunteers are using devices that you provide. And then the fourth option is you're founded by disruptors. You use IT in innovative ways. And it's just in your DNA. Or, of course, the option five would be that it doesn't really apply to you. Matt, would you mind reading the responses?
Sure. So we've got the majority of the respondents are in that basic office support plus category, followed by folks who are delivering services using IT, and then we kind of bookended by organizations that are using it in an innovative way or a kind of a transformational way, with those organizations that are still functioning at a very basic level. So a little bell curve distribution there, with the majority in those middle categories.
I was just going to say that it looked like a great bell curve. And I want to make sure to say there's no judgment here. So if you are using IT in really basic ways, if you're using IT in really innovative ways, I think the most important thing is to know yourself and know your organization, your organizational culture, because that's going to help you plan for the IT that you need and that you want to implement. So you don't want to take something really cutting edge and try to implement it at an organization that has a much more traditional approach to IT. That would not be successful. But the opposite is true too, right? If you went the other way. So that was really very helpful. Thank you. We are going to do a second poll, which helps us know more about you, which is where is your organization in terms of your size? So what size is your nonprofit? From 1 to 10, 11 to 25, 26 to 100, 101 plus, or it doesn't apply. And of course, your size is only one indicator of kind of your organizational structure. You could be a large organization that still acts like a startup. You could be a small organization that's, growing very quickly. So it's just one aspect. How about Pat? Would you mind reading the results?
Sure. So we have 32% of our respondents have 26 to 100 staff. We have 24%. We actually have two groups of 24%. So 11 to 25 staff and more than 100 staff. And then we have 16% have 1 to 10 staff. And then we had 3% that reported that it's not applicable.
All right, another bell curve. So technology and work are always changing, but we are living through a sea change right now, and no one really knows what nonprofit work and technology will be like in the future. So in the big picture, we know that we've lived through a global shock over the past few years with the pandemic. And I hope this is not a spoiler for anyone, but we know that that's not the last global shock that we will experience in our lifetimes. And perhaps not even in the next decade or so. There will be other things that happen that have a global impact. And those global disruptions and events will, of course, impact technology. And we could see that in the way the pandemic interrupted supply chains. We couldn't get the chips, so then there weren't any cars, all of those types of issues. And it also, of course, changed the way that we work. And a lot of organizations went to working remotely and are still either working remotely or hybrid or coming back into the offices now. So if we think about, 10 years in the future, it doesn't seem that far away. 10 years ago doesn't seem like it was that long ago. But if you think about it, 10 years ago, Obama had just been reelected. And I think, no matter what your politics are, that feels like a different era to me. And if you think about the United States elections in terms of the next 10 years, there will have been 3 more elections from between now and 2033. So the pandemic, the next global illness, wars that we're living through right now that are very disruptive, climate crisis, water shortages, all of these are going to have an impact on the way we live and work. And of course, IT is intertwined into the ways that we live and work. And one of the things that's interesting about thinking of the future like this and how IT impacts us all personally and how we work and where we work is that the nonprofit sector, of course, is also right in the middle of those changes. So our organizations, of course, are deeply involved in serving and in advocating in those sectors, such as environment, health, global advocacy, local advocacy, labor, justice, education, all of these different aspects that are touched by a global, shock to the system. So before we start thinking and talking about IT in this webinar, I want you all to kind of close your eyes and think about what you think is going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years. We're going to talk about IT specifics in a few minutes, but for now, we wanted to just kind of get our juices flowing and think about the big picture. So one question that comes up a lot in science fiction, of course, is will corporations or countries hold power in the future? So what do you think, corporations or countries? And I'm going to ask the panel as well to weigh on this. Do you think, like in Star Wars or Star Trek, there will be governments of the future that will have a Senate or that sort of thing? Or do you think that it will be like more like Aliens, where like the corporation is in charge and doing all of their things?
I don't know. It seems like maybe our audience is evenly divided between the two. And I think it is really, maybe hard to pick one. I think it is clear that corporations themselves have been exerting kind of much more power than maybe they traditionally have. But I think at the end of the day, they're still kind of in general like beholden to government regulations and restrictions to kind of take over things. I think, we see that particularly as it relates to China in terms of what technology is available there and kind of how corporations have really had to, change their operating model to fit within, that operating structure, right? If you're a Office 365 customer, there's like a whole separate Chinese tenant. If you have a Meraki firewall, like there's a whole Meraki entity for those for those organizations. So
I think that here in the U.S., corporations have certainly invested a lot more money in politics in an attempt to control or to manage the impact of regulations and taxes and that kind of thing. But I do think that whenever Congress gets their dander up about technology and big corporations, like those same companies, they kind of scramble to respond as well. So I think there's still going to be a very strong influence that corporations will have in government, especially since they have a lot of money. But I do still think that government is still going to hold the reins ultimately, and who knows like what the political winds will which way they'll blow 10 years from now when it comes to corporations.
I'll add that government have come to realize that corporations actually are required these days to advance in technology. investments in government-only run researches have not yielded results as fast enough. So they are not falling behind. Governments are collaborating with private corporations to ensure that they still have a foothold and can guide where that technology is going. Especially when we live in a world where there's so much competition out there. So in the United States, I'm seeing a lot more investment in Silicon Valley collaboration with government.
All great answers. So my next question is, and this came up as well, I think, Noura, you had remarked that there were some nonprofits that are concerned about not just like the special metals in laptops, but the plastics as well. And so when you're replacing your laptops every 3 to 4 years, environmentally, what is that doing? And then there's a bunch of other environmental questions. So this is another big question, big picture question. Will technology accelerate climate crisis or be able to help slow it? Sorry for asking binary questions, but what do you think about technology and environmental crisis?
I know one thing we talked about was the whole Bitcoin mining and cryptocurrency mining, and how that was really contributing to a lot of ecological damage, and that some currencies had actually shifted their model so that they would be less ecologically damaging, and just require less resources and computing power.
Anyone else on the panel want to weigh in? I'm seeing in the chat the Q&A in accelerate, I think optimistically people are saying, I hope it slows.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have no choice but to be optimistic that technology is going to solve some of the problems that previous technology has created. I mean, I think, we could also all choose to, separate ourselves from society and, get a horse and buggy and kind of go back to the farm. But I think, that's not a realistic, option for many, many folks. And I do think that, macro trends related to energy efficiency are really positive. I mean, I was just saying that, solar is now, overtaking, maybe coal or natural gas in terms of the lower cost to produce in terms of cost per kilowatt hour. And so I think that those shifts towards renewable sources of energy are going to be, I think, dramatic. However, we still have the vast majority of the world hasn't kind of gone through the same, carbon use cycle that the United States has. And so there's a lot of people that, are going to need to, have that increase in, earning potential that energy consumption drives. And so I'm optimistic, and I think but it's going to take a while to get there.
I agree with Matt. It's going to take a while to get there. Particularly given the awareness, it's just coming to light that a lot of nonprofit organizations, some of them just have to use technology to actually achieve their mission, and for that primary reason may not be necessarily focused on the environment. But thankfully, there are advocates for the environment, and globally, we are seeing countries signing agreements to save the earth. So for that reason, I think this climate change awareness, it's going to keep going across the globe, and we are likely going to see a positive outcome out of it.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges of predicting the future is that we're predicting it based on the present. And so to some degree, we expect trends that we see today to continue and improve. But what often happens in the future is that there's some innovation or some just complete paradigm shift that completely changes the way we live, or the way that we communicate with each other. We may see this kind of change hopefully in energy production, and maybe fusion technology will suddenly become a thing, and we'll completely stop using non-renewable sources of energy. It's not something that can really be predicted, but I'm hopeful that kind of thing will happen someday. I mean, it's like 60 years ago, people predicted the future as being like flying cars and their food being delivered in pill form, and nobody really predicted that there'd be the internet or how the internet would be used and how we would all interconnect and communicate together on the internet. So it's just hard to predict the future, what the future looks like. But yeah, I'm certainly hopeful that we will overcome, in the long term, we will overcome the climate crisis.
All right, so cautiously hopeful. So I have another question that's another kind of unpredictable one, but the continued impact on work. So we have robots, we have AI. Are robots and AI going to be performing more jobs of the future? And it seems like one of the things I feel like the pandemic kind of brought home was that there are some jobs that can be done remotely, and there are many jobs that have to be done in person. And so I'm just wondering your thoughts on work of the future. I can jump in for a quick second. I was at a presentation last week about farms of the future, and a lot of innovative stuff that Microsoft is doing with farming, including like drones and GPS powered tractors that can drive around the field by themselves and know exactly where they are, and AI to know when to fertilize, when to harvest, all of those pieces, which I just found fascinating in terms of course, then they were talking about how you get broadband to all of the places where people are growing the food that we need to eat. So if anyone wants to weigh in on work of the future, what do you think?
It's been really interesting to to read the news and kind of watch the news coming in all about this, the Chat GPT and OpenAI stuff. Traditionally, robots and computers have been very, have been used to replace people for the repetitive, monotonous work. And so it'll be interesting to see, as like AI takes on something of a creative role, where computers end up being used, not necessarily to replace people, but to supplement what people are doing now instead.
Yeah, I mean, I would just kind of add in. I think there's certainly no question that these technology tools are going to be used to increase overall efficiency. I mean, even look at community IT in our small way, right? I mean, we have a team of effectively 3 techs that manage 7,000 endpoints, and to think of like the work that they do and how much efficiency that represents from using our tools to install patches and do reporting and do all of this stuff, that if you were one person, or if that was divided amongst, a much smaller set that didn't have the tools in place, like how much time that would take. So I think, the augmentation of that staffing with whatever robots and automation is certainly going to continue. But yes, I have to wonder. I mean, I think there are, I think the ethics and we can certainly do a lot. I think, the question of should we or how should we do that, I think is certainly trailing, the technical capability of what, certainly is possible. But I think the ethics and really, having some discussions around what does this mean? What does this look like? How is this impacting us as a society, as a culture, as a community? We're way behind that conversation.
I think that this is where nonprofit leaders have to think about the risks and advantages of the technologies to come. They're going to be advanced, they will be effective, but there could be ethical issues, there could be privacy issues there. So, but having it in mind, knowing exactly what will work for you and understanding the risks will be very important.
That's a perfect segue to my last question, which was about surveillance. So we just were all fascinated by the balloon. Compared to like one balloon, the number of our devices that are keeping an eye on us. And I know I don't know how much in the nonprofit sector, but definitely there were a lot of stories about when remote work started, different apps that you could put on your employees' computer so you could see if their eyes were looking at the screen while they were supposed to be working. And I know in education, they have the cheating, remote school cheating. Again, the same thing, like how much time are you looking at? Where are you looking? You can't look down. It'll flag it if you're trying to, cheat on your test or what have you. So where's the surveillance state going, and what will be the impact of that type of big picture IT, all of our devices, keeping an eye on all of us all the time on a lot of things that nonprofits work on, like injustice, accountability, secrecy, privacy. What do you think? Matt, you're the cybersecurity guy. You want to talk about?
Well, I don't know. I feel like in this case, I'm so much more of a Luddite because, my initial reaction when we get this question, I think maybe we even talked about it last time, is like, well, yeah, what are the tools that we can deploy to do this? And I think the answer is that you don't. I think the human touch and the relationships that people have with their managers, like that really should be where the focus is on, kind of optimizing work, and the idea that you're going to somehow, deploy some tool that's going to analyze somebody's keystrokes and figure out if they're being a good employee or not is, takes us down towards a path of a society that I don't want to really, participate in building. And so I do think that it's that ethical framework that we need to have to ensure that the technology tools that we're adopting are in service to that greater end and not, subverting that. So I think we see that particularly when it comes to, I think, some of the failings that technology has had particularly in virtual schooling. I'm the parent of, 2 elementary school kids, and I have a flexible job. I was able to be there and be present, but virtual learning for us and many other people was a real failure because the reliance on the technology, it just wasn't, that wasn't what was needed, I think, for many kids. And the test data is kind of now showing that, we really need to be focused on, building foundations of relationships and, the tactical skills. And we can always have technology later, so.
Yeah, I think about this in the context of, 10, 20 years ago, you would sign up for a service. You would sign up for a Facebook account, and nobody reads those policies. Do you have to agree to when you sign up? Nobody read the software and user license agreements when you were installing something. But I know more and more, like, I don't want to give out my email address to have to sign into things because. Partly because I don't want like the spam marketing materials, but I also don't want my email address to be given out to these data collection agencies that are going to collate all this information about me so people can target market me as well. And I think, people are becoming more aware that that's going on and are more and more trying to avoid it. I think on the other side that there is a tension, from, just forces that want to control us, whether that's government or, corporations that want more information about us so that they can sell more stuff to us.
And this is where the choice comes for the end user, the person that's using that technology. It has been traditional for most developers or software companies to not disclose their privacy information or what they do with our data. But more and more, we are requesting for that information and choosing to use vendors that actually protect our privacy. So because of that choice, I think some other companies that don't have that open scenarios, they may be left out. And a lot of companies don't want to be left out. So they may be forced to begin to be transparent about what they do with our information. But only time will tell. And but I think we have the power, and hopefully we will be able to exercise it.
Yeah, one other thing to think about is, speaking as, if you're a nonprofit organization, is you may want to, for example, install some mobile device management policies on your staff's, personal mobile phone to help secure your data if your staff is using, which they probably are, using their phones to access the company email or files. So you may want the ability to delete that data. And, your staff may say, well, I don't want your policies on my phone. I don't want you controlling or managing, have any access to my phone. And so there is some tension there as well, which, I think everybody is still kind of figuring out, and companies are approaching different ways.
Thank you for joining Community IT for this podcast, Part 1. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave us a rating to help others find this leadership resource for nonprofits. Listen for Part 2 in your podcast feed. Community IT does these free webinars and podcasts for our community, and we love sharing our knowledge and experience. If you have more questions or are having trouble with your IT at your nonprofit, please get in touch with us on our website, www.communityit.com, so we can start a conversation or schedule an assessment. Downloading any of our free resources there will get you signed up for our webinar reminders, and you can attend our next webinar in real time and ask our experts your own questions. If you love podcasts, please subscribe and leave us a rating to help others find this leadership resource for nonprofits.